Right, everyone, welcome back. I hope everyone had a good lunch. I'm loving the food here, so it's really a pleasure. So now we're going to be talking about exploring how to best invest in data systems to strengthen capacities to collect, use, and share disaggregated data on migrant and displaced children. It's a very engaging topic, and it's going to be a Davos-style panel discussion where we will be really truly be brainstorming in front of everyone, and also we invite you to join in on the brainstorming during the Q&A session as well. So we have a distinguished panel here comprised of really the global, the regional, and the national levels here, including including Charles, who is joining us live from Gambia. Um, Unfortunately, Mr. Simon was not able to make it, but Charles was gracious enough to kindly join and really supply the very important IDAC, the EGAT perspective. So without much further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists, and I'll start with Mr. Charles Ogola. So Charles is a statistician and demographer with over 10 years of experience in statistical development at both regional and national levels. So he's the head of the statistics unit at the IGA Secretariat, and his responsibilities include contributing to the formation and implementation of the statistics program on migration and displacement, including improving the coverage, quality, and harmonization of migration statistics in the IGAT region. He provides substantive technical assistance, knowledge, and capacity development to implement best practices. Sorry. Charles is a member of the expert group on EGRIS, as well as Migration Data Network, and various statutory technical groups of the African Union. He also leads the IGAD Regional Migration Data Technical Working Group as well. Welcome, Charles. And I would like to also introduce Mr. Slobodan Karanovic. He is a Serbian professional with extensive experience in management, project coordination, and auditing, especially within the EU-funded initiatives and public sector. He currently serves as a project manager for the EU Support to Migration Management in Serbia program under the Commissariat for Refugees and Migration of Serbia. Previously, he served as director of the Institute of Informatics and Statistics and held advisory roles within the Ministry of Finance. And next, I would like to introduce Mr. Omar Ali. I would actually like to invite him to introduce himself when it's time for him to take the floor. But he is, to provide more detail, but he is the director of Demographic and Social Statistics, Institute of Statistics of Djibouti. And next, Aina Satre. She, sitting right next to me. She's the Statistics and Data Analysis Officer at UNHCR and has extensive expertise in statistics, partnerships, and humanitarian work and development work, currently serving in the Statistics, Data Science, and Survey section at UNHCR. She leads external statistical partnerships and actively represents UNHCR in global interagency expert groups and forums on diverse statistical domains, including the SDGs, gender, refugees, and IDPs, and statelessness statistics. Last but not least, I would like to introduce Ms. Helen Namirembe. She is the Director of Population and Social Statistics at the Uganda Bureau of Statistics. Helen is a statistician and demographer by training, working as Director for Population and Social Statistics in the Uganda Bureau of Statistics. She has experience in undertaking censuses and household surveys and has been part of the EGRIS team that led the development of the migration guidelines. So I welcome everyone here. To kind of set the stage, because we're talking about system strengthening, we're talking about how to smartly invest to increase the outcomes, to get better data on children on the move. I would like to start by asking everyone the important why question. So, as has been discussed throughout the past couple of days, 3 out of 10 countries do not generate recent age disaggregated data on migrants. 4 out of 10 countries do not generate this for refugees, and almost 9 out of 10 countries with conflict-related IDPs do not disaggregate data by age. We've heard that this is taking a disproportionate toll on migrant and displaced children. So the question is, what are some of the data gaps that you face in your country or region or across the globe? And what is the real world policy and human impact of this gap? I'd like to invite Aina to contribute from the global perspective.
Thank you so much, Tahon. And I'm happy to be among such great panelists. I'm also very happy to be here in Morocco, in UNHCR, but also in the IGRIS group that has been mentioned a few times. We have a long-standing collaboration with the HLCP, so very pleased to be here and present today. Just a little bit of an introduction before diving into your question, Tahon. But as probably most of you know, UNHCR's mandate is to protect and support people forced to flee and stateless. And part of this mandate, data is an important part of this mandate. Operational data that has been mentioned a few times, also from a refugee in Kakuma, a refugee camp in Kenya, is important to support humanitarian response. And we work with civil society and other partners, as well as using our own registry system to meet immediate humanitarian needs and to deliver support. And CSOs and NGOs play a vital role in this work. In my intervention, though, I will take, in my intervention, I will talk to how we work, both from the perspective of being part of UNHCR, but also as an IDAC member. Actually, UNHCR is a founding member of IDAC. I will focus on the work we do with statistical systems at national level to promote inclusion of forcibly displaced and stateless in data system for monitoring of humanitarian response, but also longer-term development. As we know, many of the refugee situations that we are addressing today have become protected, lasting over a number of years. NSOs and other statistical authorities play an important role, and coordination with other data owners at national, regional, and global level is equally important. Including with the UNHCR who register refugees, and these registers are often an important sample frame for some of the statistical work that is happening at country level. Through our involvement in IDAC and IGRIS, and it's been mentioned a few times, and I see a number of IGRIS members in the room. And I will actually, just a little bit of promotion, I will talk more to IGRIS in one of the World Cafe sessions, but through our involvement in IDAC and in IGRIS, we have developed agreed upon guidance and tools. And a little bit more on IGRIS. IGRIS has also taken it a step further and developed international recommendations on how to produce statistics on refugees, on IDPs, and on stateless, mandated or adopted by the UN Statistical Commission. So actually adopted by the member states of the UN. And from both these expert groups, there are agreements around definitions and terminology for how to capture the data on refugee children, IDP children, and also stateless children. In a way, I see the two groups complementing each other. IGRIS is talking about the different populations. With IDAC, we take the work even further and talk to how to disaggregate on age. UNHCR has identified several data gaps related to refugee, IDP, and stateless children. which hinder effective programming, advocacy, and resource allocation for child protection and development, as well as effective reporting on global commitments. We have SDGs, the GCR, the GCM, the Action Agenda on IDPs, as well as the Ending Statelessness Agenda. I will talk to some of them below, but some of these gaps below, but the overall issue, as alluded to already, is about inclusive nationally owned statistical systems. This is the main challenge. National data systems are often not inclusive of forcibly displaced, stateless, or migrants. Hence, age disaggregated data and statistics on these populations is a major gap. Sometimes migrants are included in national data collections, for example, in census or surveys, but the reason for migration might not be included, and that excludes or renders the forced displacement population invisible even in this data collection, as well as the special protection needs of people forced to flee across international borders. The same could apply also to some population registers and civil registration and vital statistics systems. From a UNHCR perspective, we are basing our annual population statistics on data from governments, often supported by UNHCR's registration data, but still 1 in 4 countries with refugee statistics do not have age disaggregation. In addition, inconsistent reporting by host countries complicates cross-comparative analysis over time and geography in global reporting. Also, gaps in socioeconomic data affects durable solutions programming and reporting on impacts at all levels. So what are these data gaps? I think they've been all addressed quite carefully in this conference. But as mentioned already, inconsistent disaggregation of data by age, gender, and disability. Without this, programs to ensure inclusivity and accessibility are inadequate. To address the age disaggregation gap in our global statistics reporting, UNHCR, in collaboration with UNICEF, is using sophisticated models to produce age disaggregation. This shows how important this work is for our global reporting, but also for our program implementation. I think the critical gap around data on unaccompanied and separate children has also been raised several times. And this has, as I mentioned earlier, been identified as a gap in the IGRIS recommendations as well. And I think it's something that we want to address in the next iteration of the recommendations. And we do support, or we do invite IDAC members into that conversation to see how we can improve. There is also a gap around access to education. And this is, of course, more and more important in terms of ensuring inclusion into education systems. Similar gaps around health and nutrition, and also gaps around data on children's involvement in decision making. We have talked a lot about how to make sure that children's voice is heard, and also how that can facilitate trust building. There's insufficient longitudinal data on integration, resettlement or return outcomes. And there's also limited focus on how the loss and skill development or transition to livelihoods affect their long-term perspectives. So impossible to follow the development of children and also do some course correction on program implementations. This data could also provide some good stories, some practical examples, and encourage others to work in this data area. Another gap a little bit on the side of the actual data gap, but I see gaps also in capacity and resources related to analysis of data. There is need for strategic and targeted analysis so that it can feed into policy and program development. And I also see often that the child aspect is omitted from the analysis. I just attended a workshop in the MENA region, and one issue that came out of this workshop was cross-border movements and how we see complex humanitarian crises and forced displacement patterns where populations are moving back and forth between countries. It's not a singular movement, it's cyclic. And how to capture this in statistics as well. And this also calls on more cross-border collaboration. There is need to work closely with migration authorities on both sides of the border, and also to emphasize the importance of age disaggregation. You have to stop me when I'm talking too much. I'm moving now to the impact. So how does this data gap and also the challenges that I've addressed impact the work we do? Quality data are needed to understand the specific needs of forcibly displaced, stateless children, as well as migrant children, whether they have crossed the border or remain within the border of a country, so internally displaced children. Lack of data affects resource allocation, program development, and monitoring of programs, and also, as I mentioned earlier, correction of programs already in place. Without this data, the global community have problems with following up on its responsibility to provide an environment that enables children to recover from physical and psychological trauma caused by the conflict and their displacement, and ensure that they have access to their basic rights to well-being, and also to provide the necessary protection that children on the move deserve. Limited targeted intervention and support tailored to their age and specific needs is also an impact. This might include access to education, psychosocial support, legal assistance, and protection from exploitation and abuse. Time series data, data on statelessness. It has come up a few times. In children is crucial for breaking the cycle of statelessness that can perpetuate across generations. By identifying stateless children early, efforts can be made to prevent the transmission of statelessness to future generations. And related to that, I just wanted to give a real life example of how data was used and that data had a positive impact. I think Hunjo also brought it up in her presentation, but we did carry out a survey among the Shona population in Kenya, stateless people, and also comparison with host populations. And the data showed that they were faring much worse than the host population. This was then brought to the attention of the policymakers and the government, and they made an executive decisions, and they provided citizenship to this stateless group of people. So how this aggregated data could feed into policy making is a good example. Just to conclude, when we have this good example of how data can impact, it does show us that there is a need to work in this area. And it also, data also are building commitments of governments. If we have data, it's difficult not to act on data. So I think that's also important to stress when we continue this conversation.
Thank you, Aina. You know, you were inviting me to stop you, but actually everything that you were saying is such gold. So I couldn't bring myself to stop you, and especially because it covers, I think, it canvases a lot of the data gaps as well as its real world impacts that a lot of the governments are experiencing. So thank you very much for that overview. And perhaps next I'll invite Charles from IGAT to intervene to maybe give the IGAT perspective, regional perspective, as to what some data gaps are and what are its real world impacts. Mr. Charles, here the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. You can hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay, thank you very much, and I'm happy to be part and parcel of this panel discussion. And first of all, just to say that IGAD is one of the regional economic community under Africa Union, which is based in the eastern horn of Africa. And we have a membership of 8 member states. And I'm happy that Helen and Omar, who are there, are also part and parcel of the member countries of IGAD. Therefore, when you look at IGAD, it's also a place whereby there is a lot of the movement in terms of being the origin and also the destination of migrants. And at the same time, the issues of displacement is also really a lot here. Therefore, having said that, just to delve straight away into your question, and Aina has already really alluded to it, but at the global level. But at the regional level, first of all, when you look at we have different member states who are at different levels in terms of their statistical system, and therefore also that is also one of the challenge that when you look at the issues of the comparability or majorly in terms of the aggregation of the data at regional level. As a REC, we don't collect the data specifically, but ours is majorly looking into the harmonization and also the aggregation. The real data collection takes place at the country level, and therefore, to mention a few in terms of the issues, one of the issues that have been coming out clearly is the issue of the limited disaggregation of data, which has already been mentioned, and this specifically issues of age, gender, and other specific vulnerability of children on the move. For example, even what was mentioned about the unaccompanied minors, and sometimes are also not consistently captured across the member states and their line ministries or department and agencies. This also makes it very difficult in terms of aggregation at the regional level. And normally we say that you are always as weak as your weakest link. Secondly, is the issue of harmonizations of concept, definitions, and methodology. You'll find that there are some varied definitions of children and across the member state, and this really hinders the comparability and harmonization of data. And in addition, you will find that there are differences in data collection methodologies, definitions, and tools resulting to some of the fragmentation of data sets. The other one is in terms of the impetus on issues of administrative data. Right now is one of the key areas that we get, apart from the data that deals with children, and there is need really to strengthen this administration data sources for statistical purposes. And currently, you will find that there is insufficient integration of migration-related data in the national statistical system. And therefore, these gaps also emanate from the coordination between the government agencies and the national statistical organizations and NGOs and international organizations which are collecting data. And lastly, in terms of the challenge, also the issue of the limited coverage of movement, and specifically also speaking about the irregular movement. And this is really an example. For example, when we were developing our second edition of Migration Statistics Report, only 3 countries shared some data on this, but they had significant data gaps. And this also applies in terms of capturing the data on children. Having said that, some of the policy impact are, for example, the ineffective policy formulation. And as we know that without accurate data, policies are often based on assumption, and this might lead even to misalignment of interventions of children on the move. In addition, Aina has already mentioned about the resource allocation becomes even difficult in some of the underserved areas. Second one is in terms of limited integration of migrants into the border issues or border planning. Now, this really restricts the integration of migration issues into socioeconomic policies, which are crucial for long-term development. In addition, there's also issue of the data inconsistency might limit IGAD regional ability to coordinate regional responses and harmonize the child protection strategies across the region. And this makes it even difficult in aligning with international frameworks like the Global Compact on Migration, Refugees, and also the Convention on Child Rights. In terms of the impact on the human impact, I think one of the key areas that it can impact is the exclusion from social inclusion programs, whereby without any proper documentation and on data of these displaced children, it will be very difficult even for them to be included within the social protection system, and also the issue of the inadequate access to the basic services due to limited data, and this it will be challenging to administer the essential services which have already been mentioned. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Charles, for that very comprehensive overview. And I know that IDAC has been making a lot of good progress in terms of harmonization of the indicators, and perhaps the administrative data will be the next frontier to advance this journey. But I'm sure we'll be talking about that in the next questions. So perhaps I can now pass the floor to Helen to talk about the Ugandan context and specifically, to answer the same question, the data gaps as well as the human and policy level impacts.
Thank you very much, our moderator, our listeners, and our colleagues. Good afternoon. I'm here very happy to be with the team to discuss issues on migration. I've been part of the family that I've been part of and I'm still part of the EGRIS team. So in Uganda, we have tried a lot to integrate the migration into our national statistics system. We do conduct household surveys every 3 years for measurement of poverty, and there is always a question on migration. The issue was to monitor the dynamics and if people are really, why is poverty in this sub-region higher than the other? And basically it would end there. But we had information for persons aged 10 years and above, and nobody would go deeper into that, however much we are demographers. But looking at the aspect of, we've worked together with EGRIS, I've been part of the team. We have really benefited a lot. And in our statistical system, we know that the questions on migration are a very small component of the population. You have to capture them in the census. And we've been doing this in the census, but not having some kind of detailed questions on the census. Because in the census, you can get the regular and then the irregular. So we were able to do that. And we had even we had stakeholders, and we consulted them, and we worked as a team. We have a module on refugees. We learned from other countries and asking these questions at individual level. Even when we talk about internal displacement, these questions were asked. So we are happy that we benefited from that, and we are, at the end of the day, we are writing reports on migration, and we have an analytical report for the census, which we did this year in May, but we shall have a thematic report on migration, specifically harmonizing everything, looking at all those aspects of the forced and the voluntary migration. Migration is good. We are not always saying migration, forced displacement. Yes, it is not good, but on the whole, it fosters development. There is free movement. If it's orderly, if it is safe, there is capacity development. People learn, they get new jobs. It's a global world, and it brings, people send money back home. It fosters development, and there is generally good results if it is orderly. But when it is not orderly, then there is a problem. We have, the Ministry of Labor is responsible. We have a program for labor externalization, whereby the ministry accredits all those service providers where we export our labor, and it's mainly to the Middle East. But we have agreed, and the NSO worked with the ministry to ensure that there is a form which is good, and which collects data. Ideally, for those who go through the formal channels, there is a trail of information which is left behind. What we call the administrative data. It gives you background, your village, and your details. So when it comes to the migration for the youth, then we'll have that kind of information if it is really for jobs and that kind of thing. But if it is through the improper channels, then we miss out on that. And in the census, we also asked those people whether they had returned. We had information on a module on migration, and we get information on returned migrants. Why are we collecting all this? We are aware of the SDG indicators, and we are basically getting all this information, try to answer this. And we are aware that issues of disaggregation is a key component, like Aina and the others have mentioned. And right now, we face that challenge in the sense that you cannot have everything in one basket. You have the orderly, you have the forced displacement, you have the children, you have the youth, you have the administrative data. At the end of that day, we as national statistics offices, we have that challenge. Do we have the capacity to produce all this? Yes, we have to mainstream data, to mainstream migration, forced displacement data as part of our national statistics system. But are we at that level? In Uganda, we have the refugee response framework team, and it has a steering committee and a technical committee. The steering committee, we have sat and agreed as a country that we can't move in silos. Today, UNHCR is collecting data. Tomorrow, IOM is collecting data. No, we said that put money together, work with the UBOS, Uganda Bureau of Statistics, and what the good proposal, the good aspects, the good lessons from Uganda, that steering committee, the Bureau of Statistics is recognized and is a member. So they are there to oversee the processes regarding data collection and trying to harmonize. Then, having all this learned from the EGRIS team, what we did as a country is that I'm in charge of migration statistics. For any data collection process, you don't need to ask me. Whether you're doing a malaria indicator survey, whether you're doing a household survey, whether you're doing a demographic and health survey, you go and collect. It has to capture the aspects of those people who are in forced displacement, the settlement camps. But ensure that methodologically you have information for the host communities. Now, basically, that's what we are doing. We have a wealth of information, but mainly our gaps are we have not yet tapped into this. We have written reports. They are still under the draft stage because of the census. We put some activities aside. But we are coming all out to prepare all these reports, aware that we have these data gaps. But I recommend that statistics officers, you should plan for the human resource capacity. The resources is not only financial, but the brains to sit and handle these reports and make meaningful analysis out of it, or give more tables and post them on the website. You need them. So our biggest challenges are when we talk about internal displacement, we have climatic issues like Charles has indicated, conditions whereby you have people, there is a western part of Uganda, the floods, there is a certain river. I hope everybody knows Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, Rwenzori area, and there is a river. It causes flooding and displacement. On the eastern side of Kenya, there is Mount Elgon area, very fertile soils where we grow our Arabica coffee. People live on the slopes. Right now, as I speak, there is a death toll which is increasing. There have been mudslides, and people are covered. You don't know how many losses. You don't know how many families. You are doing estimates. So in our statistic framework, we lack the other infrastructure is the aerial photography. So don't look at only this kind of infrastructure, but there is a lot to do more. We don't have that kind of infrastructure whereby you have already stored the digital satellite imagery of those areas, the disaster-prone areas, so that you know that it's now a rainy season. Can we get the picture? So if there is a disaster which has struck, can we get a picture? Then you can draw maps and account for the losses. And you have done the census, you have proxy information on the numbers of households, whereas because we did a digital census, we took a GPS location for each structure. So here we are talking about systems. But when it comes to IDP statistics, there is concentration, there is tendency to focus on the refugees. So these are some of the challenges we have. And when we talk about children on the move, the focus is on who are the migrants. Even our sections in the census questionnaire, I know you can't have it all, but the focus was looking at adults. You don't consider the children, because one thing I have noted from this training is that the questions on children are really specific. Their needs are different from those of the adults, but we have one generic model: education, what, not. Yes, they are disintegrated from their families. Have we ever sat to go back and find out these unaccompanied children? Where are they? What is happening to their families? Yes, the displacement, you are managing the population is good, but we have that data gap. We don't go ahead after settling them, asking about the families of these children and the people they left behind. So these are some of the gaps we have in our data. I don't know how much time I have and I am left with, but basically I can talk, and there is a lot to talk about. But I've talked about the limited infrastructure, and of course the data which we have is also not disaggregated, but we have learned. Not today, we learn every day, and we are going to improve on this, making it ideal for generating child-friendly policies which affect the response mechanisms, that is for the targeted support. And also, locally, we still have some people who still work, some organizations, they want to work in silos. So the issue of collaboration and strengthening the cooperation among all stakeholders. We have a good network. We have, especially the UN family, they have agreed to come together, but also there are other agencies, and we shall continue fostering the collaboration at that level. I don't know whether there is something missing.
That's perfect, actually.
Yeah.
So you covered not only the what are the gaps and what are some of the impacts, but you've also covered like what the government is doing about it and how you're addressing them. As well as you've also highlighted some of the systems level, the data systems level challenges that is perhaps contributing to the data gaps too. So thank you very much for that coverage and introduction to the situation and your environment in Uganda. Perhaps Salvador, maybe I can ask you to cover the same scope as well. Not only the data gaps and as well as the impacts, but perhaps some of the challenges that are contributing to those gaps and what you're doing about it.
And
in the Serbian context, of course.
They spent all the time. I can say only hello. My standpoint of view and my approach today, I am not a theoretical guy. I am practitioner, and start with the sentence yesterday, the guy from Scotland. One sentence was crucial for me. Behind every data are the story. I'm the one who's living this story every day, 24 hours as a project manager in 15 centers in Serbia. Serbia is a Balkan country, and on the Balkan route, had enormous pressing in the period from 2016 until today. 1.3 million migrants crossed Serbia from Turkey, Greece, North Macedonia, Serbia, then to Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, or Croatia, the member states. Why the data are crucial for me, for myself? not only data. Yesterday you heard about unify approach, standardization, reliability, but for myself is the crucial trends. I manage the budget of European Union for 22, 23, 36 million euros. This money I have to manage on the several budget lines. The key budget lines are reception and the protection of migrants on territory of Serbia. Right now, I have 800 of them. 20% are with mental problems. 11 unaccompanied children, I don't know from where they come. From interviews, they can say all they want to want. We know very precise. They are the results of smuggling migrants from Bulgarian and Romanian side. That's the only one data. But the trends are very useful for myself because of economically, efficiently, and effective spending EU money. This is one of the crucial external activities of the European Union outside the European Union. For instance, for myself, trends are the situation on Turkey and Syrian side, 2 million migrants on the border, 2 million migrants on the Turkey and Iranian side from Afghanistan and Pakistan. Bilateral agreement between Italy and Albania for the center in the city of Drac. All these places are interesting, and trends of numbers of these or data of these migrants. They want to stay in Serbia. Serbia is not interesting for them. They want to go to Europe. And that's the crucial for me. Data are very interesting and crucial, and trends are for me. As someone who are a practitioner, who are on the field, who solve the problems on the field. The national legal and administration definitions for myself, first and foremost, to classify particular groups of migrants or displaced persons, determining their legal status and access to rights with the given countries. For some groups, such as international migrants, there may be significant variation of legal definitions between countries and regions. For instance, one example. During the IDAC workshop organized in Serbia 3 years ago, discussions among relevant stakeholders highlight the abundance of data on children on the move. However, it was also noted that not only subcategories as migrants, refugees, asylum seekers, internal displaced children, returnees under readmission agreements are equally recognized or covered by the data collection system in all areas. Because of different perception of categories can lead to the distorted data. Most people are busy with work, and we are not sure how many of them will go to those links to read such more documents, dozen documents and pages. For example, schools collect only those data that are relevant for them. For instance, by school age group or classes, or the different organizations dealing with reception, collect and aggregate data in different ways. For instance, government reception unit versus NGOs reception unit in the countries. Differences between the data in these two entities. Less of coordination of the state institutions are the third gap, and other actors in data exchange is crucial, and in the sense holding regular meeting and the working group, info sessions for institutions whose work with migrants is not their primary job, but work with the categories of persons, health centers, schools, other entities are very important in order to inform them about the different definitions on data structure.
Thank you very much for this. It really seems that there is a theme that is pretty much common to everybody who's spoken so far. This issue of harmonization, this issue of the importance of accurate data for programming or for policymaking in various contexts, in the transit country context, as well as country of origin context as well. And so perhaps now I can turn to you, Omar, to talk about the Djibouti context. And yeah, so gaps, impact, policy, and human, as well as perhaps some of the things that are being done to address those. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Alors, there is a beautiful saying by a French author that I love. His name was Charles Péguy, and he said, "It's very important to say what you see, but more importantly, it's important to see what you see." So in terms of, when it comes to gaps, in terms of data, it's really easy for a statistician or a demographer working at an NSO to not be, to be completely oblivious of the gaps that can exist in terms of data in the country. And that was my case, honestly speaking. I come from a very particular country. Djibouti is a very small, tiny country in the middle of the East African region, the only French-speaking country in that region, a population of less than 1 million for a very, very long time. Our first population and housing census after we became independent in 1977 was in 1984. There was a single statistician in the country back then to speak of data capacity gaps. And that census was so complicated, and it was done in such a way that it was never published. There was a lot of issues, internal quality issues, under coverage of certain populations. And then the second census was done in 2009. We had a rough estimate of the population, but same problems, I mean, in terms of quality, etc., etc. And then we did the third one only this year in 2024. So that's the context. If I talk about my personal experience, I started working in 2012 at the NSO, and for many years I was a very happy person in my office doing my analysis, reading the literature, submitting paper to conferences, and I was perfectly happy in that situation up until 2019, when I started receiving questionnaire from the African Union, IGAD, and to complete. And I was like, okay, let's complete them. I opened my laptop, look at the data we have, and first thing you notice, you don't have all the data in your office. So they are in some other department. We start writing letters, we send them out, waiting for them to respond, and then nobody responds. And then the deadline passes, and then you start to panic and like, oh, Charles is asking me for these tables to be filled, and I don't have the data, what should I do? And then that's how I really started learning outside of the office, the reality of the national statistical system. Because yeah, I was trained as a demographer, but part of my training didn't cover all these, the importance of coordination, the importance of, I mean, yesterday, we were talking about the resources, the statistical frameworks that exist at the international level, how to bring that back to the country, and I will speak about that in a minute. But we never learned all these things. We take them for granted. So, and when you are confronted with insufficiencies, that's how you realize that you need to go out of your comfort zone and start to knocking doors. And for me, that was really a humbling experience and a wonderful learning experience, because I became friends with a lot of people to begin with. And it was great, because now whenever I go to different administration, I have people that I know, but also you kind of see where you can bring value, and not just in where you work, but outside of your office. And as a statistician and as a demographers, we have this obligation to be the steward for data quality in the country. So we need to go out of our comfort zone And the issues that Hélène and everybody mentioned, and Aina, are true in Djibouti. We have serious capacity gaps, whether it's human capacity gaps, whether it's data capacity gaps, data quality gaps. So it's really a big chantier, as we say in French. There is a lot of room for work. And so what we did in 2019, when we realized with my best friend that we had this work outside of our work. So what we did is we came up with the support of IGAD and IOM. We came up with this idea of setting up a collaborative platform. We set up a technical working group at the national level that was constituted of all the different administrations, ministries, departments, and agencies, the UN organizations, civil society organizations. And back then, we didn't know where we were going, but we knew that we needed to have this forum, this platform to discuss, to bring our difficulties, our issues, so that we can try to find solutions together. And thank goodness, and thanks also to the opportunities to participate in regional forums, international forums such as EGRIS, IDAC, IGAD. We just started learning new things. And as we were learning, it became more and more interesting. So now we have just had recently our 10th meeting of the technical working group, where we discussed migration and displacement data. It's only on that, but we try to cover also all the other aspects, all the other phenomena. We talked about data governance, we talked about quality assurance, and you see how people from different administrations, they are eager also to learn from us. So we bring a little bit of that passion and that knowledge we have and the resources we have and to them. And that's how we have been trying to overcome these capacity gaps. But of course, a lot of work to be done. And secondly, in 2021, when our country decided to do the census, at that time, because I was for 2 years working on these issues of coordination, I started getting interested in that. And there was a position that opened for the direction of demographic statistics. And I don't know why I applied, because I was like, yeah, let's do it. Why not? And then I was appointed director of the demographic and populations and social statistics. And soon after that, director of the census. So it was double responsibility on me to not mess things up. So we used the technical working group and the platform we set up to really bring everyone together for the census work. When we were designing the questionnaire, we had EGRIS support to review our questionnaire. IOM has been with us throughout all this process. All the other partners, UNICEF, really it was just a collective work. And that's why I was saying yesterday that it takes a village to raise a child, and it takes also a village to build a national statistical system and overcome all these challenges, because there will always be challenges, even if we are like Norway one day, and that's my dream, to be a country that uses the register based statistics. We will always find issues and things to improve and to work on. And going forward in the next few years, what we really want to do is to improve the administrative data, as we have I've just mentioned. Also the legal framework in terms of statistics, to make it inclusive. Djibouti, through Instad, we are with EGRIS and GDC, we are the co-lead on the inclusive, making the statistical inclusion at the global level, to include migrant, forcibly displaced, and stateless people into the national statistical system. And we are working on that. And so going forward, coming up with guidelines for quality assurance, coming with guidelines on how to handle data privacy, confidentiality, strengthen the legal system, and strengthen the capacities in terms of knowledge and learning, because it's not enough to do just one workshop. We want to do something that is continuous and continuously really update and train and share the best practices around the world. And so that's why here, as I am here in Rabat, and I'm very happy to be here, I am like a sponge for ideas. So every time when I meet someone, I want to get some new ideas to bring back home and try that when I go back. And voilà, merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I mean, it was such a pleasure to listen to from where you started and your personal journey as you have started to become more and more, I suppose, quote unquote, strengthened your capacity from just working at the NSO level, and starting to do regional cooperation and jointly developing guidelines with the IGAD, the REC, and ultimately really trying to bring down and apply this jointly developed standards in a way that makes sense to your country context. It was a very powerful narrative. So thank you very much for sharing this. And maybe I can now turn back to Aina. I'm going to actually ask you a couple of questions. The first is, you've mentioned in your first intervention, like what are some of the gaps and what are some of the policy and human level impacts. So what do you think are the key challenges facing you in addressing those gaps in terms of data system strengthening perspective? And if you had multiple millions of dollars across 5 years. I know that there are some donors also perhaps listening in as well. So we can try to also brainstorm some key messages here. So if you had, let's say, $5 million over the next 5 years, like where would you invest in it, and how would that perhaps address some of the data systems challenges that you've mentioned? And what would be, and like you can paint the vision, like what would be the impact? What would be the yeah, please, the floor is yours.
It's a big and very exciting question, but I'll try to address the first part of the question first. And I think some of the challenges with data systems have already been addressed by national colleagues. I'm not going to repeat them, but I just wanted to again say that I think from a global level and working with IGRIS, where UNHCR is a key member and also hosting the secretariat from the very beginning, involved in development of those recommendations, we do see some of the same challenges mentioned by colleagues in the panel here in other countries and in other regions as well. So I think those challenges that you have mentioned are the same everywhere. So I think providing the examples of how you met some of these challenges and managed also to overcome some of the challenges related to legal frameworks that are not inclusive, related to strategic plans that are not necessarily developed or linked to national development plans, linked to data sharing agreements. We're talking about sensitive data. We need to have proper MOUs and data sharing agreements in place. And we also need to be holistic and inclusive in our approach, not only focus on one data source, but try to link the different data sources together in an interoperable way. And I think also, as mentioned by my colleagues, coordination is also key, not only at national level. We talk a lot about the NSO's role together with all the other partners at national level, but also the two of us, we also have a big job in coordinating with other UN partners, with other regional partners in our request to countries, and not overburdening countries with this or uncoordinated request, knowing that also countries have a lot of reporting requirements from global level. So just wanted to mention some of those issues. I think IDAC has an important role to play in supporting some of these areas, of course. It is a global forum of experts. We have developed guidance, we have developed manuals, and there is now material that we can use in supporting age disaggregated data. And those manuals and guidance shouldn't just be left on the shelf. It should actually be documents that we use. And I think also this meeting today has been an eye-opener for me, because we brought different partners into the room. It's not only the National Statistical System that I normally work with, and I think that's key in producing statistics on these population at country, but also including other partners in this work is important. Both the CSOs, the youth organizations, and the NGOs. And I think these organizations have an important role in being that mediator, being also involved, if possible, in data collection exercises, both to build trust, but also to be able to take some of the findings from the data collection that we do back to the communities that will work on it. But I also want to highlight that we need to work closely with other partnerships. IGRIS has been mentioned many times, and I think that is also due to some of the very good success stories from the IGRIS work. There is also the expert group on migration statistics, and of course we try to align with that expert group and the expert group on refugee statistics, going back to my previous point about not overburdening countries with requests from a global level. There is also very interesting improvements in relation to labor statistics, and Tahon also knows a lot about the ILMS. And it's all about how to include these populations into national statistical exercises, and also bringing the age disaggregation aspects into the work. I'm happy that Charles is here representing IGAD, also an active member of IGRIS, but I'm also happy that we have economic and social commissions in the room. Petra, UNESCAP, is here. As I mentioned, we recently did a workshop with UNESCO for the MENA region. We need to take the work from global level down to regional level to really see this having some impact. And these economic and social commissions that including IGAD and Statafric, they have the community of national statistical partners, and having availed that to our usage as well is something that we really are appreciative of. And also number of other coordination mechanisms that we work with. There is the African Migration Observatory. There is also the whole working group around solutions on IDP data. Data on solutions for IDPs, have to get that right. And of course, there is also technical support facilities like the JIPS, the Joint IDP Profiling Services, and our regional offices are also very important actors in this work. We have good examples of how inclusion has happened, but there is still a long way to go. And Morocco is a prime example of the thematic survey that they did on refugees. Djibouti and Uganda, but also a number of other countries have included refugees in their work. And some of the takeaways from this work is that we need the practical examples. The IGRIS is currently, and I saw that the deadline is extended, collecting examples of implementation of the recommendations. So I think to get some inspirations for national statistical systems, please have a look at what of the latest GAIN survey findings as well. And also the need for more analytical capacity. We need to take the data and transform that into analytical pieces on how to strategically influence policy and programming and other type of development at all levels. I haven't answered that question yet, I guess, but I think that is a very tempting and important question, because I think all of us have also talked about the need for resources in this area, and we see also a need for stronger coordination between partners because there are diminishing resources. I think from my perspective, I still see
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
still need for building capacity of national statistical offices, cross-learning between countries, but also between regions, more harmonization between methodologies and definitions, also to get that age disaggregation elements into the work. Work around legal mandates, but also on the interagency collaboration in general. Many have mentioned administrative data sources. I also believe that that's the direction that much of this work will go in. I still need to get my head around how we're actually going to do it, and I will continue to work with the colleagues on improving inclusive CRVS systems, because I think that's very important. And also, of course, sharing between partners the good practices and the good examples. I also wanted to highlight some of the work that we're leading in UNHCR at the moment. That's the Forced Displacement Survey, and it's currently being rolled out in a number of countries. It's in collaboration with national statistical systems, but very much also driven by UNHCR at global, regional, and country level. And there has been an expert team in UNHCR developed tools, methodologies. We know that sampling of refugees and forcibly displaced and IDPs is very, very challenging, but there is a team dedicated to look at how to do that to make sure it's a representative sample. And also developing a questionnaire. So there's a whole package that is available for countries that would be interested in taking on this work. And I think if I had resources available, I would think about the work as multi faceted. So you also need work with national statistical offices. We have the Forced Displacement Survey, and also there is still need for operational data that can respond to humanitarian needs as we see them scale. So that's how I would maybe distribute the funding if it was available, and also ensure that the different areas are coordinated and talk to each other. So yeah, please let me know if there is anything in the prospects.
Will do, and we're really speaking the same language, especially I'm just really leveraging the momentum that's coming, especially next year, as all of these processes, including the expert group on migration statistics, as well as the revision of the ILMS standards as well. So there is I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we're not joking. I think there is a huge demand from that will be coming from our national stakeholders. So before, I want to actually direct the same question to you, Charles. If from the IGAT perspective, perhaps some challenges in terms of data systems, and yeah, if you have $5 million, how would you address it?
Okay, thank you very much. And actually, thank you for even offering me that $5 million. And as IGAD, we are really happy to get that $5 million so that we can really strengthen the regional statistical system, specifically to ensure that at least at the regional level and also at the national level, we have accurate and quality data. Okay, coming back to your the other question. First of all, we believe in the all of society approach, whereby we don't leave anyone behind, specifically when even you look at the issues of the system development. Therefore, the challenges, actually, Aina just mentioned almost all of them, but now it can actually be cascaded at the regional level. But just to summarize, I think some of the key challenges that also emanate and also influence the issue of the data gaps include the issues of the resource constraints. And therefore, we will welcome that $1 million. And that can help in terms of really supporting the national statistical offices and even at the regional level, and in terms of building their capacity in collecting and also processing and analyzing the disaggregation, the disaggregated data. Issues of the limited human resources, which was already mentioned by Omar. And then there is also the issues of the inadequate infrastructure, because without infrastructure, even having the data itself will not be easy, because there must be also have that optimum infrastructure that will really help, and more specifically now that also we are talking about the modernization agenda. Then the issues of methodologies and standards still is another challenge, and this is majorly in terms of even inconsistency in terms of the concepts and definition. For example, when you look at the variability in defining the age categories across the countries, sometimes it will lead into the issues of the data collection and even reporting inconsistency. For example, what is the definition of a child or a youth? This may vary in terms of, and therefore affect the comparability across the countries. And then issues of harmonization of tools is very important. Therefore, that can also help in terms of bringing issues of having some standard data collection tools and even the methodologies. Then the issue of privacy and protection cases or concerns that have already been mentioned. And you'll find that with that always brings the issues even in terms of coordinating the data collection on children across the border. And this might even raise complexity in privacy issues as each country may have different legal framework and even ethical standards, and issues of integration of the data system. Because now if you have the fragmented data sources and you see that we have different players who are doing this, therefore it also make it difficult to create a comprehensive, even age disaggregated data sets. And therefore, and weak centralized statistical system. And many countries, you'll find that they lack a centralized database where the data is disaggregated across or stored and analyzed and shared. And having said that, what I see the role of IGAD in terms of even strengthening this is one of the things is promoting harmonized methodologies and standards. And therefore, organizations such as us and even IDAC, and we work towards aligning data collection frameworks with the international standards, such as the SDGs. But at the same time, being a continental body, we also align to the standards of the Africa Union through SASHA 2 and the African Charter on Statistics, and not forgetting the other critical definitions of the migration statistics, the refugees, all those principles and recommendations. And this will really help. For example, and therefore, as IGAD, we have the regional strategy for development of statistics, which emphasizes on the harmonized approaches for collecting migration and displacement data, which also include the specific categories on the vulnerable population like youth and even children. And also as a member of EGRIS, and we are working to support member states in terms of implementing the recommendations of EGRIS, that is IROS, the issues of international recommendation on IDP statistics and refugee statistics, and then also looking into as a development of some of the regional guidelines on harmonization of migration and displacement statistics, which we have already started. And we are happy to collaborate also with IDAC in terms of articulating some of the critical issues there. And then IGAD also has already established some key priority indicators and developed a harmonized data tool, and which includes some of the age disaggregation. But our prayer is that as we move forward, so that we don't overburden our member states with a lot of questionnaires or something like that, when we have a standardized tool or module, and at the same time coordinate with the different stakeholders, it will make it easier for us to be able to at least get most of the things. The other thing is about the capacity building and technical assistance. And as a regional organization, we need to enhance the capacity of the national statistical offices and the aligned ministries in terms of providing avenues for training, workshops, technical support, and in addition to even the platform whereby they can be able to share, learn from each other. For example, when we have the IGAD Regional Migration Data Technical Working Group, we even include the other partners like Statistics Sweden, IOM, IDAC, ILO, GIPS, to come and also just share with our member states to see how we can even improve. We can also, another role is just facilitating the learning peer-to-peer amongst the member states, and IGAD has been able to do that, and facilitating one member state to go and learn from other, or even amongst all of them, and also looking into how to come up with regional migration statistics report, which we are in the second edition, and this provides a comparable view on the age distribution of the migrants, and at the same time, member states now get the impetus that really we really need to improve on some of the areas that we are not doing well. And currently, we are also implementing a program on child protection policy, and this is very important because it articulates the issues related to children. And the platform for sharing some of the good practices is very important. And so far, we are in the 5th regional migration data technical working group, whereby member states are able to share some of the good practices and lessons learned the national context. And we will be having the 6th one in February, and we will be able to invite even you to participate and share some of the experience. Now, when it's come now to the $1 million or $5 million, I think one of the areas already Aina has already mentioned, and we are looking at that because currently, when we look at the issues of the administrative data sources, but at the same time, even the citizen-generated data, and the strengthening of the civil registration and vital statistics is very important. And that can really help us in terms of identifying the critical areas that the children and even tracking their movement. The other one is developing a centralized repository or centralized regional data platform and an observatory, which will really help in terms of articulation of the different data, and at the same time ensuring that we work very closely with all the stakeholders to avoid the issues of the operations in silos. And then now that we have a modernization agenda, it will be great also to advance some of the innovative data collection and monitoring tools, and looking into even leveraging on the issues of the big data and the geospatial technologies. And capacity building and human resource development is important. And some of the money, we can see how this can help in terms of capacity building issues and also the human resource development, and also fostering the multi-sectoral collaboration and advocacy, because the data system for children on the move require input from multiple sectors, and at the regional level and also at the national level. And with this, it will really help us in terms of having some impact in enhancing policy making and resource allocation, improving the child protection system, better emergency response and planning, strengthening the regional collaboration, and lastly, ensuring that the capacity building initiatives elevate the overall data quality and analytical capacity at the national and the regional level. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Charles, for really a comprehensive overview of all of the possible systems challenges, as well as measures that you're currently doing and perhaps we could do. We can just capture this this recording and then transcribe it and put it into a project proposal right now. I think it was very comprehensive, and especially I really appreciate this emphasis on the global, regional, and country level, this vertical coherence in terms of indicators, and yeah, just I suppose establishment of a community of practice of a sorts, which is what I'm hearing between the lines. And so there's working groups 1 through 4. I think and you can participate in all of them if you would like, if you're not already. So perhaps I can direct the same question. Well, you've already addressed some of the data systems challenges. So maybe I would just ask the fun question of the what would you do with $5 million and what would be the,
$1 million.
yes, global down. Yes,
I work with 36 million. But 1 million is too interesting. First and foremost, improved cooperating system for data collection. First and foremost. Second one is the unified approach with the classification of the data, so different entities who are collecting the data. For instance, in Serbia, there are 16 of them from Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Interior, National Employee Services, etc., etc., etc. And the crucial education. education. For instance, right now we have a common project, MPTF project together with the UNICEF, IOM, UNDP, UNHCR. I have to read this because has an objective to accelerate the implementation of migration priorities towards achieving SDGs and fulfilling its commitment by promoting data and evidence drive migration policy and planning process in Serbia. Excellent workshop, excellent project. More of these such as projects is necessary in Serbia. But I have to raise up and read. Serbia produced from 2011 producing the migration profile. Migration profile is an excellent tool for managing of migration policy in Serbia. The importance of the date of the development of effective and efficient migration policy is recognized by the National Migration Management Strategy. One of three specific objectives is to establish system for monitoring and reporting of migration data that determine competent institutions, indicators, build adequate technical and administrative capacity. As one of the first steps to achieve these objectives was establishing appropriate coordination among competent authorities, especially data producers. So each state authority with competencies in the field of migration management was obliged to appoint focal person on the work group for preparing national migration profile was established. Finally, the law of migration management defined collection, analysis, processing, organizing, exchanging, storage, and protection of data relevant to migration management, the determination of indicators, data relevant to migration management, the establishing of the unified system and other mechanism for the sharing of operation data. Migration as essential part of overall migration management. The law additionally determined commissariat as authority responsible for this task and regular publishing of the national migration profile. In line with the national policy with the support of IOM, we prepared first migration profile in 2010. Since then, every year the migration profile is published. The migration profile enabled to monitor and report migration on trends and therefore very useful for different analyses. This is also a very flexible document that may cover different topics that are relevant in the moment in national context. For this reason, migration profile is an excellent tool. Serbia is country negotiation membership in European Union, and therefore we continuously align our legal framework standard and practices with the EU, specifically with the Eurostat methodology. Our migration profile has two parts. One part is a very detailed and rigid structure aligned with Euro regulation on statistics in the field of migration asylum, but there is other parts that can be extended with the different topics relevant to the national migration policy. Whole migration profile is divided into three main migratory categories: legal migration, irregular migration, and forced migration. Migration profile is proper place to introduce special chapter dedicated to the children on the move. The data resulting from the migration profile allowed to the collection of indicators relevant to children on the move for SDGs. SDG 1 and poverty, SDG 3 ensure healthy lives and promote well-being. SDG 4 ensure inclusive and quality of education for all. 5, 10, 11, 16. I don't mention what the others. Some of measure indicators are the ratio of enrolled children, asylum seekers, and refugees in primary and secondary school by sex and the age group, the number of children and minor asylum seekers and unaccompanied migration who were provided with basic health care, services and psychosocial support on the percentage of children, asylum seekers and persons granted to the right to asylum, born in Serbia, whose birth was registered with the competent authorities, disaggregate by sex, status, and the living conditions. From the very beginning, we tried to have age and sex-sensitive data. As many indicators as it was possible are disaggregated by age and sex. Currently, 26% of indicators are disaggregated by sex, although the data disaggregated by the age are mainly split in two categories, adult and minors. We managed to have 16 of indicators age sensitive. Age sensitives. Sorry, I have to read too many of them. Especially, I invest in improvement, upgrade of such as project. Especially, second part will be the ICT supply, because in previous our conversations, pre-I is when we talking about the data, collecting, dissemination, etc. Pre is important for me. Integration, interoperability between data, and implementation or dissemination of the data. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Slobodan, especially 3I. That's a very good heuristic. Perhaps I can now invite Helen. If you had multiple $1 million, what would you do, and what kind of results would that have?
Thank you very much. I'll try to be fast because mainly most of the things have been raised, but the issue of capacity development is critical. Then two, the human resource capital required to analyze those reports, given that there are specific needs. We are seeing the youth on the move, the kids on the move. You can't have them integrated in our analytical reports. You need to unpack and generate more tables and other user-friendly materials which will support the development frameworks. Then also, having listened in the story from our colleague from Scotland, the issue of those stories behind the data is highly critical. Routinely, we need to have some qualitative surveys which can answer some of these questions, bring out those issues hidden. And of course, in the process, you have to involve the youth because they are on the move, and see how we can have quantifiable stories to give us good messages which will help in programming and policy intervention. I think the rest have been mentioned, but those would be my priority areas. And also, maybe it is not only for the country, but also at the regional level, support the regional frameworks which exist. The UN is strong, so that you knock at the doors of these countries which are about to conduct the census. You will have a full picture. I don't want to digress, but getting to specialized surveys without a clear methodology, you will undercount migrants. We have some good lessons for our labor, and we have published this and shared with other countries not to repeat those mistakes. When you miss something from the census, when you make a mistake with the census, you live with it for 10 years. So bring the recs, support countries that are doing the census, give them your views, because we collect this data for national and international level. Thank you very much. I beg to submit.
Thank you so much for that invaluable point of really mutually supporting, of governments mutually supporting each other as they go through the, especially the next 2030 census round. Will be coming up around quite soon, sooner than we can imagine. And also, I really appreciate your so bringing in the human dimension, the story dimension, because as we're talking about data, it's often very easy to forget about this. But this is really what drives why we're trying to gain more data on children on the move. So finally, I would like to address the same question to Omar, please.
It's a wonderful question, and it will depend of if you give me the 5 million now or 5 years from now. So if I'm getting the $5 million today, at least 2 million of that I will use it for, as my colleague Ellen said, to train a human capital. A well-trained, sufficient human resources is really important. And when you are, I am the head of the department now, and we are a small team of less than 15 people for all the country. Imagine. And when I was telling you earlier, in 1984, we didn't have even one single statistician in Djibouti. And people, I'm almost 40 years old, people age and they die. So we need constantly to have human capital and to renew our human capital resources. So at least $2 million, I will put it in human resources training. And also, one thing that I want to say is that I am very stingy with money. And my colleague hates me sometimes because of that. When we started the census in 2021, and we developed a census document, we estimated the budget at $8.5 million, and we only had 2.5 million. So when you are a small country with resource constraint, you have to come up with ideas and creative ideas. So what we did was, luckily for us, we tried to rationalize and find other supports. So, for example, Egypt gave us tablets for free. We were supposed to buy the tablets, but we got from Egypt free satellite images that were budgeted that we had to buy was given to us by UNFPA for free. The Census Bureau supported us in so many ways, from the conception all the way up to. So it comes back to what we were saying about the resources. I'm really happy and very optimistic when I think of the fact that we are not alone, and we are part of this big family of the world, the international statistical system, where we can have the support of the UN agencies, the countries that we are neighboring countries, countries with which we are in the same economic commissions, etc., etc. So there are all these resources available to us, and it's really reassuring to count on this. And so we came down, we brought down the cost of the census to 4.5 million, from 8.5 to 4. So we saved like $4 million, which was super great for us. And then the remaining funds after that, the World Bank was willing to put the 2 million remaining to complete the census. And that's how we had the money to do our census, because our government, for some reason, doesn't put a lot of money into statistical development. So we have to find different ways to mobilize funds and resources. And in that, I have to say that, yeah, I've been very happy to have the advices, the ideas, the support of other colleagues from other places in the world, and that have helped us do our work.
Thank you very much for really highlighting, I suppose, the need to bring in innovative means of working to the work that we're doing, and which is yeah, sometimes, a lot of the times, this is where the battle is in trying to get good work done. So thank you. I know we're currently at the 93-minute mark. I'm wondering if we have time for Q&A. I'm looking at the organizers. Maybe we can have just one question from the floor, if there are any. Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, the lead panelists and the co-panelists, Aina, Umar, Helen, and I don't know your name, oh, sorry.
If you want to translate, my name is freedom or liberté.
Okay.
You can address
yeah,
me.
Yeah. So, Aina just raised a very important issue. I think it formed the crux of the whole discourse right there on that panel, which has to do with the level of coordination at either national, regional, or global level. That this coordination should, at the end of the day, should speak or talk to each other is very key. What IOM is doing, ILO is doing, UNHCR is doing, UNICEF is doing, if it's on related issue, are they talking to each other at the international level? At the regional level, ECOWAS, I'm talking about my region, AU, are they speaking to each other? And that takes me to the issue of standardized tool that the man from IGAD raised, the tool on displacement generally, like the IOM, DTM, the population snapshot publication by UNHCR. Of course, in my country, they speak to each other. And that speaks to the level of coordination. Now, there's this saying that if the development partner leaves a country, especially third world economies, developing economies that grapple with the issue of resource constraint. I'm going to where Umar is saying now. No, resource constraint is a huge problem in developing economies, especially in Africa. So many things to do in terms of statistics, so many statistical results expected to come up with in terms of output, but heavily constrained by resources. And that's why I'm going now. The goal 17 of the SDG, of course, advocated for partnership. And that's where I'm telling the development partners that they should not see themselves as having a development program that have an end date. IOM, UNHCR, UNICEF, of course, IDAC and the rest of all the development partners in every national economy should not see themselves as having a project that will end. Because whether I like it or not, the world has become a global village where we need a symbiotic relationship. We need each other whether I like it or not. Without the national, there will be no regional. Without the regional, of course, there will be no global. And there is this saying that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you must go in group. I think that alone is enough to pass a message, because since yesterday, I've learned so much. At any forum I come, I ask questions a lot, and I want to learn a lot. And the aim of this is to take something back home that can make my country, which is one of the most populous country in Africa, better in terms of migration development. We have learned from IOM. I think I want to give credit to IOM for giving us the first opportunity in 2013, 2014 to have the first national migration policy that gave us the governance structure that is a key example to other African countries today. So I want to thank you very much, Aina, for raising that. That the key takeaway, even if I'm not taking anything away home, is that all this coordination, please, as you are doing the coordination, let them speak to each other. Let them not be in silos, but should speak to each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your very validating and encouraging comments. I think it really means a lot to us who have discussed, especially this very important point of coordination and really tackling things as a village. I'm not sure if I've heard a question in these comments. Unless would anybody would like to say respond?
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. So thank you very much. I think, I think from the comment from the participant on the ground, I think it's from Nigeria. And For sure, one of the issues that we are really looking into, even as a regional organization, is the issue of the coordination across all the domains. And for example, as IGAD, we have been able to have, at regional level, we have on a weekly basis, technical partners meeting, whereby we talk about the issues on who is doing what kind of collaboration do we need, and so as to support our member states, and exactly so that we avoid even the issues of the duplication, but at the same time, ensure that we leverage on each other's efforts. Secondly, there is also the issue of the Regional Migration Data Technical Working Group that brings together all the member states and some of the focal points from the different line ministries at the national level, who are part and parcel of the regional level. In terms of speaking to each other with the REX or even at the continent level, yes. At the moment, we are even in contact with the different focal points on migration statistics and migration displacement statistics, even from ECOWAS, COMESA, EAC, ECAS, UMA, all those ones under the leadership of the Start Africa Union, given that, and that's very important. And even one of the issues that we have been discussing is how do we come up with an harmonized tool that will articulate the minimum indicators that the various member states across the continent can be able to be reporting on. And remember that even as we speak about the REX, there are other priority areas that are different, and therefore some of the indicators will be different, will be a bit different. And at the same time, when you speak about other issues of the tools, for example, when you talk about the DTM and the rest, remember that there are two kinds of tools. There are those ones which are operational for operational purposes, and for the administrative data sources, which is now one of the key areas that we can really even get the data for the migration and even displacement, it is important for us to strengthen these administrative data sources, not now for operational purposes, but for the statistical purposes. And this brings issues of the data quality frameworks and other standardizations of the definitions and other areas within the all data value chain. I think that just to finalize, my colleague Ellen spoke very well about the issue of even the specialized surveys, which will really help even in terms of articulating some of the areas that we really need to understand. And this also requires investment. And that is where now the collaboration and the cooperation and coordination with donors, technical partners, and all relevant stakeholders, whereby we leave no one behind to support the regional, continental, global, and the national statistical system. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Slobodan, and then Aina for the final word.
I mentioned, I remember your sentence, far and fast sentence about this. In Serbia, they told what is the fast is upside down. But Serbia is already looking far. Problem is not on the national level. But when we are talking about the legislation, when we are talking about institutions, etc., we can organize it. What about the regional and the international level? I always ask, was the roof law for the world? What's the rule law? Who's the rule institution for all the data? We are in a good position because the guy from European Union, from Eurostat, is here. And we are lucky one because the roof institution for us is the Eurostat and the Euro regulations, because we are adapting our regulations, our standards to the European Union, especially chapter 11, 18, when we are talking about the statistics. We are in an excellent position. This is our roof institution when we are talking about the data, when we are about the dissemination, etc.
Thank you. Aina, you have the final word.
Thank you. until recently, we didn't have recommendations in many of these areas. And I think there was a need for this, and that was raised by a few courageous countries and organizations, and the development of international recommendations on refugee, IDP, stateless, but also migration statistics started. This was then approved or mandated by the Statistical Commission. So we have the UN Statistical Commission also as our reporting back to mechanism that is monitoring what we're doing and also providing us with guidance and support. And the membership in the UN Statistical Commission are all the all the statistical offices of the world. So that's also another monitoring mechanism and also another fora for where we can discuss some of the issues that we discussed today. So also wanted to say, as I said, this is a relatively new area of work. And as you said, representative from Nigeria, we're all in it together. And I think we've started the journey and we have the commitment to also continue this work. And I think the recommendations that we implement and the work that we do also need some revisions. And in that work, we as the global community are reliant on the national and regional community to hear from you how you have implemented and what are the practical experiences in statistical work. What did work, what didn't work, and how can we improve the recommendations that we try to implement to improve statistics in this area, and also age disaggregated data, because that's so important for protection of children.
Thank you very much, Aina, for those inspiring words. And yeah, I think that concludes our panel. If you could join me to give a round of applause to our amazing panelists. And I believe there may be a 10-minute coffee break, or correct me if I'm wrong. 5-minute coffee break. Okay. All right, thank you.